Dear Venerable Sisters and Brothers, Dhamma friends, today too we are going to start the talk today. May everyone settle down and give the consent with 3 times sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Katami tayo dhamma bhave tabba tayo samadhi avitakka savitakka savichar samadhi avitakka vichara matta samadhi. Dear Venerable Sisters and Brothers, Dhamma friends, we are listening to Venerable Maha, whereby he is teaching us what are the 3 things we must cultivate, what are the 3 things we must meditate upon, and all the 3 is given as a common name, Tayo Samadhi, 3 kinds of concentration. So, as far as the concentration is concerned, according to the Venerable Sariputta, there are 3 kinds, starting from the beginner, going to the advancing yogi, and the last one is the advanced yogi. For the last 2 days, according to the particular sutta known as this Dasuththara Sutta, we were trying to understand Savitakka Savichara Samadhi. That means 2 mental concomitants or mental factors called as Vitakka Vichara. Whether you use it or not, it's always in your mind. And if you are not mindful, the Vitakka is the one adverting your mind whenever too much of objects are there, which one to be picked. And that is being already happening in your mind according to likings and disliking, according to your value judgment, according to your personality traits, or we can say according to the karmic forces, your forces coming throughout your past life if you are believing the reincarnation or rebirth. So whatever it may be, it is happening, and if you are not observing, if you are not theoretically understanding, if you are not accepting it, it usually follow the pleasure principle, selecting whatever may be desirable. So that is how the world is going. It is called, according to the Noble Eightfold Path, Miccha Sankappa. Samma Ditti, Samma Sankappa. That means the correct view and the correct thinking. And its opposite is, counterfeit part is Miccha Ditti and Miccha Sankappa. Miccha Ditti means you have a wrong view. Miccha Sankappa means according to your view, this Vitakka Vichara is leading to whatever may be desirable. And sometimes what is the most hateful. And therefore, Kama Vitakka, Vyapada Vitakka, Vihinsa Vitakka, these are the 3 kinds of Miccha Vitakka predominant in the undeveloped mind. That means sensuous desire and the hateful and causing others trouble. This is the way my human mind is working. So knowing that very nature of the mind, the Buddha coming out and say, what about fixing your attention to a neutral object, knowingly neutral object, specifically material object. Instead of Kama Vitakka, instead of Vyapada Vitakka, that's the hate, Vihinsa Vitakka, inflicting suffering to others, these are the natural way. So instead, what about the Ekaggata, or one pointed with one neutral object. And loving kindness expecting the well-being of the others. And helping people in need. These are the good things. So we take the first one, instead of kama vitakka, what about ekaggata, or concentrated upon one neutral object. So this is a kind of a restraint. One has to understand. That's why when we come to a meditation center, when you are sitting down, we know if the eye is open without your control or in an ungovernable way, eye is going out and looking for shapes and colors. So it is the most swift thing. So therefore you are volunteering to close it, that faculty, seeing faculty, and go and dwell in a place where there are no musics and all kind of sounds or attractive or distractive. Be as much as possible and don't entertain smell or taste, and keep the body in an unintentional way and take this as your primary object and advert the mind again and again to that particular object. That adverting of the mind or applying the mind, sometimes it's been translated as thinking. It is not much really giving a good translation, and we can say noting or labeling. So the noting the sitting posture, labeling the sitting posture, and applying the mind to the sitting posture is what we call vitakka. Instead of your sitting posture in sitting meditation, within the sitting posture, the breathing can represent the living body. Or rising and falling of your abdomen can represent the sitting body. Or otherwise you can see the pressure points, or you can see the shape, or you can see any other under the nose experience in sitting posture. So this is what you call knowing. Whenever you advert the mind to sitting posture, it never come back without touching it, experiencing it, knowing it. So knowing part is called vichara. And each and every moment when you apply the mind to a sitting posture or the in-breath and out-breath or rising and falling of the abdomen, so it knows I am with the body, bodily posture, or I am experiencing the in-breath and out-breath, not the body. Or another person may say, I experience the rising and falling of the body, not the body, not the breath. So likewise, it is very discrete, very delimited, and to know exactly whether mind adverted into the breath, you may add the experience you get. In-breath is cooler and out-breath is warmer, in-breath is shorter, out-breath is longer, and in-breath is touching on the left nostril and the right nostril. Like attributions are called knowing. And instead, if you are observing the rising and falling, you may see rising is the tension and falling is release, and rising is expansion. The contraction, going up and down, all the kind of thing indicate what did you comes to know or knowing. So when and where you learn this theoretically and apply yourself, and when it is working in a positive way, you get frills and thrills. You get kind of a concentration. This is the very first kind of experience for a beginner or a starting yogi. So that is also known as a concentration. There are a lot of objects, you know it, you never expect only single-fold object, that is never happening in your life. So when and where such array or range of objects happen, you apply one particular neutral object again and again. When it is catching, when it is developing the relationship, whenever you can keep that particular object longer, that is the point where we can say the vitakka is working along the way I desired, and the vichara, the knowing of that very object or touch of that very object, the experience of the object, you get. Not only that, you can report. So this is the starting point. And when and where this is being applied, it is not limited to sitting posture, even though we take it as the starting point in the story. And then whenever you go to walking meditation, you simply do one task intentionally, that is walking, but not to reach some place. You pace up and down. And while the intentional thing happens, try to understand the posture is different. You are standing and pressure points are basically confined to your soles, and how much you can understand or how much you can advert your mind, divert your mind, get avenued with the mind to the left leg when it is left leg is functioning, right leg is functioning, and if it is increasing, it's like just a learning baby how to walk without falling. You learn according to the effort you exert, or otherwise we can say for the first time an adult will learn how to ride a push bike, how much he can keep the push bike without falling, without keeping the leg, how much you can maintain the balance. And likewise, more and more you practice, you can understand how many left legs, how many right legs consecutively you can be aware. In the day-to-day activities, something like brushing your teeth, washing your hands, and washing dishes, whatever may be, you must understand the intentional job, what we do and what is the intention. The brushing, bathing, whatever may be, and be aware, instead of all the other bombarding objects, you be aware of the main task what you do. That is, you make the mind single fold and try to be with that particular thing. Their posture is changing, main object is changing, intention is changing, lot of intentions are happening. So therefore, beginners are not asked to be mindful when you are in gathering, when you are in a group, when you are in that kind of thing. Don't much worry about that, because it is very difficult. If it is possible, it is good. But when and where you are alone and you do it by yourself, it simply says apply SMS, do it little slowly and do mindfully and do it silently. Here the silent means listen to your own sounds. Whatever the task you do, be aware how much you are making sounds. So that is when and where you learn your own sounds, naturally you become self-conscious. And that is a way, it is the way understand, yes, I am mindful. And I know it must not be with so much of noise. I can reduce it like the attention can come. So therefore this savitakka savichara samadhi, usually in a retreat specifically, we can try sitting posture, and in the walking, they are the one we basically indicated in the timetable. And besides that, whatever you do, try to be alone yourself as much as possible without socialization, and single fold intention, and try to keep the track with the intention even if it is changing. So this is a kind of a instructions inclined to insight meditation. In the concentration meditation, for the pure concentration or samatha samadhi, usually higher emphasis is on sitting, less on walking, and they never usually talk about mindfulness in the day-to-day activities. So they are very concerned about the sitting and atmosphere without much distraction, and walking also some more do not promote it, prescribe it, and day-to-day activities not. But in Nissarana we usually take this vipassana bias kind of instructions. sitting, walking and day-to-day activities. So many get good results in sitting meditation, and when and where noting going to work, and ultimately you can train your mind and change your brain. You can train your mind to go for one particular object. Ultimately your personality traits, your likings and disliking, your habits, you can little by little do away with, because now you are adverting into a neutral object. And when and where you are avenued with or face to face with neutral object, it is sorry to say meditation become boring. Meditation become monotonous. Meditation become lethargic. Meditation become not dramatic, not interested in. Because you know you are focusing to a neutral object. Otherwise mind is roaming and jumping like a monkey from desire to desire, or hate to hate. But here, imagine how do you train your mind and change your brain, and how much will it take for someone to appreciate it. My mind is with the neutral object, I feel some kind of boredom, I feel some kind of monotony, but it's a result of my meditation, so therefore the appreciation is the what? It's unpredictable, it's a change your mind. But for the last 30-40 years, I would say more than 50 years, it has been proven your brain circuits, your mind can be trained. More and more you apply time to be with this neutral object and repetitive noting, you can change your mind. But it takes long time, because you have to understand so much time since unknown, it is being trained for the pleasure principle. Now, with your restraint, moral restraint and the concentration restraint, you try to apply to the same object. When and where it is coining, avenuing and adverting into the neutral object, part of the mind is happy, telling that my effort is successful. The other part of the mind says, how can I appreciate it? Is boring. It's monotonous. It is flat. So therefore, now your decision or your approach to these results depends. When the two people meditating in the same meditation hall, one person may be very happy with the results, telling that my mind is now adverting to the desired object, and I can maintain it more and more. The other person will say, more and more I meditate, I feel more and more bored. I feel monotonous, sleepy, doubtful, fearful. And so, imagine the value of interview, value of the question and answers. Then only one has to understand and give instructions accordingly. So there is no technical right in telling when this happened, do this happened, do that. It's a kind of a personal thing. But basically we can understand two types of personalities. In between, there is another personality. It can only report as and when it happened, rather than driven by your likings and disliking, or become lethargic and get up and go. And these are the two types, driven by the noting and be happy. They also never give up noting. They will continue to habitually noting, and that is also not the basic idea of this noting and knowing. The other party will say, it's very boring, I can't do. So these are the people do go away from the meditation centers, dropouts, and it may be sometimes more than 90. But they expect some kind of thing, but this is what happens. This is what a rational thing, you can understand it. Imagine there is a kind of a portion, they says, when and where I apply mind, vitakka is there, I know it is like target shooting, I can shoot the target now. But there is an underlying tendency, boredom sets in. At the beginning it is not, because your success, you get frills and thrills. But when and where it is continuing, naturally this boredom can happen. So hardly any person can report it, because they never expect it. I would say the most unsuccessful lot come from Buddhism. There are a lot of expectation. So they never coin with this expectation, because this kind of pragmatic happens. So the teacher has to make aphorisms and let them talk and ask them, don't judge them, don't assume anything, just report what is happening. It's very difficult. So therefore the communication, interviews and the question and answers are very, very important. That is called sakacchanuggahite. So if imagine one person really can continue with this in-breath and out-breath, or whatever may be the neutral object, and whenever boredom happens, it's also not boring, or monotony, whatever may be, and try best. The success, how much I can be with your primary object or desired object. That means more time with the in-breath and out-breath, or more time with the rising and falling, or more time with your sitting posture. Walking also, you can understand, amidst of all the cross currents, you are more with walking posture, or left leg and the right leg. So when it happens, that means you are ready to go to the next stage, whereby you recognize you want to sit. My primary object is either sitting posture or the breath, and it is sure, because of your acquaintance, because of your past memory, because of your success rate. And now, when you sit, immediately this object, just like an appointed person, you can feel the breath. And later you may find that you can experience the breath. You can know the breath without noting. That is what the second stage Venerable Sariputta is presenting, avitakka vichāramatta samadhi. You are not noting, but by just by just observing, you can be aware. Noting can happen. Or in walking also, without noting left leg and right leg, you know you are walking. And that stage is, some people make questions out of that. Earlier it took so much of minutes for me to be acquainted with the breath, but now soon I sit, I get it. That happened often in residential retreats, because you are daily applying so much of hours for sitting and walking, and when it happens, if you are not well instructed, while you are knowing, you can do either with noting and without noting. So systematic people or square-minded people keep on noting. They never do away with noting because of their habits. So they never allow the mind to know without noting, without labeling. There's another kind, if you are well instructed, it says, when and where mind become acquainted with, when and where mind is ready to know the object, do a trial and error, or do experimenting, be aware, know it without noting. So this is the adventurous stage, or easily you can say, you are risk lover, and sometimes mind is wandering off due to this risk. And again you can take it. If you feel you are a failure, you can keep on noting. If you feel it's a success, you can try without noting, knowing happens. So this is the part where now you are working in a known place, you know the surrounding, you know the machine, you know the technique. So when you go there, easily you can start the job, not like an apprentice, because of your past experience. So therefore, without noting, knowing is the endowment or gift of your systematic training. This can be explained parallel with the samatha practice or the concentration meditation or calmness. In the samatha meditation, these concentration states are considered as jhanic experiences. So for the first jhana or first absorption, you must be contented or not. You must be successful, I would say, with the vitakka vichara piti sukha ekaggata. That means you must have the applying thought and the discursive thought or noting, knowing, vitakka vichara, and then kind of a rapture because you are successful, and kind of a happiness and kind of a concentration. Then when that happens, we call you are done away with 5 hindrances, Kama, Chanda, Vyapada, that means sensuous desire, hate, sloth and torpor, and regret and remorse, and doubts. So these 5 jhanic factors are working against the 5 hindrances. So the day jhanic factor get the upper hand, we call the first jhana. That is in the samatha meditation. And you have to master it. You have to make sure when and where the applying thought is happening, sleepiness you can do away with. When and where the knowing happens, doubt cannot happen. When and where the rapture is happening, hatred cannot take place. When and where sukha, that means pleasure can happen, there won't be any past and future roaming and wandering. When and where the concentration happen on single object, the sense of desire cannot happen. So they do away, and that state is being called as first jhana. Now my story is going to the second jhana. When you are to go to the second jhana, you have to do away with vitakka vichara, or applying thoughts and the discursive thoughts, or noting and knowing. So it is well documented in the concentration meditation. You get the first jhana with the help of vitakka vichara, and if you have to advance to the second jhana, you have to drop them. So exactly the same thing you can apply in the inside meditators. You get acquainted with the object at the beginning with noting, with applying thoughts, but when and where it is happening automatically, you try your best not to note, not to apply your thought, and still the knowing happen. So this stage is the part only you can guide the yogi through question and answers, through interviews. I may complicate the situation by adding one fact in the concentration meditation. Concentration meditation in usual way talk about 4 jhanas, first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. That's called explaining in the fourfold way. But there are 5 mental factors. If you are dropping one by one, there should have 5 jhanas. Panchakanaya, Chatukkanaya. So in the commentary exegesis and the Abhidhamma, they recognize 5 jhanas. You first drop vitakka, and then you go to the second jhana. When you do vitakka vichara, you go to the third jhana, like 5 jhanas. And when you open the Sutta Pitaka, it generally recognizes only Chatukkanaya, only 4 jhanas. And therefore, theoretically, you do away with no labeling or noting, and you can have knowing. But the samatha way, if you are going to the second jhana by dropping vitakka vichara, both, that kind of a theoretical kind of a contradiction is happening. So in the Venerable Sariputta's system, he says, first you do it noting and knowing, and then second thing is without noting, but knowing is happening. That is the part, in my vocabulary I would say, you put the meditation into autopiloting mode. You let it happen without noting. Be aware. If you know that you are walking, never mind. Sometimes maybe thinking, sometimes maybe left and the right, sometimes maybe thoughts or sounds. They go there and come back. As much as you know you are walking, even without noting, you have a kind of a peace of mind. That means no much of exertion of energy to note it, because you know. But it is not the beginning, it is not the starting point. Starting point, noting. After you develop kind of a acquaintance, after develop your season or mastery, then you can try know without noting. So that part, for example, now you came 30-40 people here. Some people would have already passed that stage and they can report, when I sit, I know I am sitting without noting. Or I know in breath and out breath without noting. And another person, completely beginner, he may say, when I sit, lot of wonderful thoughts happen, lot of thoughts, pain, sounds happen, what should I do? Then you say, please, take this technique of noting and knowing, see whether it is applicable. So if it is happening, you have to tell, others can start without noting, that is because of their past experience. But in your case, applying thoughts and see how much you can take the situation under your control. And when it is happening, even the senior yogis, sometimes due to your social background and kind of thing, your mind will be completely bewildered. Under such circumstances, you have to make use this noting in order to make the mind calm. Quickly you may do away with that. You can start knowing. But the beginner take long time to get into this autopiloting mode. And whenever it is happening, situation may be complicated due to one aspect. For example, I take naturally in breath and out breath. Now you train your mind to be face to face with the in breath and out breath without noting. That means you can stay little longer with in breath and out breath, so you do away with noting. And under such circumstances, when and where the breath becomes little subtle, the difference between in breath and out breath disappears. This is a kind of a complicated situation, but this is an advancement in meditation. At the beginning you see this is in breath, not out breath. This is out breath, not in breath. But when and where you acquainted with, mastered with, or seasoned with in breath and out breath, when they become calm, that's a kind of a taming of your mind and training of your noting, and then you see the difference between in breath and out breath is disappearing. So this moment you go to the knowing without noting, you can see transition is in your object, transition in your primary object. And that is the part challenging, that never appreciated in the samatha meditation, but in vipassana, this is a crux, this is the most important thing. More you keep the object in view with, you see, even without noting, you can understand, you can come to know the very object is changing, because both in-breath and out-breath appear somewhat similar, or in rising and falling appear somewhat similar. Therefore the disinterest, dispassion, or boredom, or monotony can be accelerated. Earlier there was a very discrete difference, but now you can see they become somewhat similar, like a grey. So the meaning of this talk and the meaning of this question and answer session is make your mind prepared More you get acquainted with the object, you see some changes in the object. If you have a permanent notion, it's a threat for you. It's a challenge for you. It's a disheartening for you. If you go with the impermanent notion, you see after so much of training only, you can come to know, that is to say, whenever you develop knowing without noting, your mind is more geared, more energized, more catalyzed to see changes. So much so in breath and out breath almost like appear equal, and some many shapes, many manners happen, and so your mind is invitive if you go with impermanent notion. So impermanent notion is not meditation. That's a theoretical understanding. It's a kind of inferential knowledge. So how much you are mature enough to gain this experience and interpret it in a healthy way. So easily you can see this a kind of a brainwash, conditioning. So therefore theory understanding with experience must go hand in hand. And theoretical understanding also, you have to say at the beginning you develop kind of a concentration, noting and knowing. And when you become acquainted, you can see without noting but knowing. Over there, let the phenomena happen. As and when it happens, don't put your value judgment, your assumptions, your premeditated idea, just see what is happening. So then what happens is, in the meditation jargon it says, the individual characteristics of the in-breath and out-breath disappears, instead the common character come into being. Common character is the air movement. Individual character is this inward gush, is outward, but you can see just air movement. And very interesting enough, whenever your mindset is ready to understand the common character, that's in Pali it is called Vayopotthabba Dhatu. Inward gush or in-breath also Vayopotthabba Dhatu. Outward also Vayopotthabba Dhatu, that's a touching and rubbing sensation of the air. And both of them indicates mindfulness is intact, but the object has changed its shape and the manner. But if you can go back and refer to your history or chronological order, then you can see you are intact mindful, but the object is changing. And now you see the common character. If you are developing this in the day-to-day activities, you never see male and female, you can see human. As far as you see from the female point of view, you never see humanity, you see only the femaleness. And if you try to see from the maleness, you can't see the humanity, you see maleness. So when and where you try to develop this common character, yes, there are some metabolical difference between the males and female, but both are human. So that is what lacking in the present day. We are in a stereotype way, sectarianism and fundamentalism. We try to recognize it. Each and every time you try to recognize with these categories and classes and creeds, that is fertilizing permanent notion. And that is what the education means. That is what the politics means. That is what the present day economy means. That's what the social development means. So they never see human. And when we had the civil situation clash between Tamil and Sinhala, we never sympathize. We can be universal loving kindness to human, but not for the Tamil. No, that is not a joke. We must kill them. But we must have universal loving kindness. And they also, usually they are not committing mistake because they are not doing metta bhavana, so no problem. We never look there as human. And see what is happening in the West. So much of sectarianism. upmanship, superiority. And they try anything to maintain that superiority. So what is happening is, draining off is humanity. So likewise, if you wish to see the Vayoputthabha Dhatu, the expansion and contraction nature of the air element, just see in-breath also one aspect of it, and out-breath also the aspect of it. You see air element now. But at the beginning, in-breath is in-breath, not the out-breath. Out-breath is out-breath, not the in-breath. So likewise, you at the beginning you start it like that, but slowly, your mind become wider, open-minded to see, yes, the very breath can change the shape, change the manner, and both can appear, sometimes just appear like a vibration. Just like a cycle, not like a piston going up and down. So some people say, when I am walking, at the beginning I see up, lifting, dropping. But when the mind become acquainted, it's like a cyclic thing. Just like I am pedaling a cycle in a push bike. Or I am walking in a water body up to the knee, so every leg movement I can feel, because it is cutting through the water. And in the breath also, appear like a cycle. Very difficult to say the beginning, end of the out-breath and the beginning of the in-breath. And the end of the out-breath and the beginning of in-breath, it is cyclic thing. So that means mindfulness is continuous, that is called undisturbed mindfulness. Akhanda sati. So when the akhanda sati is happening, all the time you are in view with the breath. And there you may find end of the out-breath and the beginning of the in-breath, there is a gap. When and where you give this continuity of the mindfulness, and once become familiarized, once become seasoned, or you can understand, the cycle is happening at the top end and the down bottom end. There is the gray area shifting, just like changing the button in a relay race, like changing happen. So you have to be very calm. You have to get a distance and observe it as a third person. Then you see in the cycle, all the part is not enlightened. Some parts are black holes or blind spots. But the mindfulness is continuing. It's a miracle. Now, there is no air movement. At the beginning, mindfulness is heavily based upon the air movement. But at the end of the in-breath and out-breath, beginning of the out-breath, at the end of the out-breath and beginning of in-breath, no air movements, but you see kind of a lingering, kind of a connectivity of the mindfulness, depend upon no materiality, depend upon no air element, and earlier you have not noticed it. Now you can calculate, there is a part, a mystical part, end of the in-breath and beginning of the out-breath. And don't rush. Just observe it, and there you can find middle of the in-breath, middle of the out-breath, very rubbing, very gushing, going there, but the end is always without air element, without air movements, but the mindfulness is continuing. That will never happen as far as you are sharp to understand in-breath versus out-breath. Noting in-breath as in-breath and out-breath, out-breath, at that time, the mindfulness is not refined enough to get these nuances, the shadows of the grey area. So when it is happening, you find phenomena outside in the world always cyclic. Our linear mind always try to make it lenient or batch system. But the production is in the continuity. It's like a cogwheel in a machine, it's rotating. Ever rotating. So best in its performance is when your bloody ego is not there. Machine runs smoothly when the ego withdraws. Whenever you fork fingers and try to accelerate and decelerate, the cogwheel broken off, break off because you are interfering. So when the vitakka, avitakka, vicharamatta samadhi, then you can say machine is running, You are a neutral observer from a distance, but the continuity of the mindfulness, that's called Akhanda Sati, is functioning, and it is like a everlasting machine. In-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath, left leg, right leg, left leg, right leg. It's boring, sure. But you can understand that become an object for your mindfulness to continue, and there you see the transition from the in-breath to out-breath, out-breath to in-breath, left to the right and right to the left, always mystic, always immaterial. But the mindfulness is continuing. So try to see how your distracted mind or training mind with the mindfulness, discern them. Most of the time your mindfulness is based upon the materiality, but materiality is not continuous. It is giving way to the in-breath, gives way to the out-breath, out-breath is given way to the in-breath, and in between what is happening. The Buddha says the desire is maintaining the bridge, is utterly imaginary. But if you can see the phenomena-wise, if you can follow the materiality, you can see materiality completely stops, stands still from in-breath to out-breath, out-breath to in-breath, and mindfulness continue on conceptual basis. So therefore you have to, don't apply theory, don't try to do something, just see. You have no noting, knowing is happening. And lot of gaps, and you may claim, I have seen, I have touched, it's first-hand experience, under the nose experience like. Now only you see, even more and more you observe, less and less you claim what you see is that is there. Usually we see, thing is there, I am here, what I see is there, what is there I can see. So Pandita Sayadaw says, in a dusk like this, when you go out and walk, for walking meditation, you can see ant lines or creatures going one after the other, line of ants. And at a distance it appears like a rope, it appears like a serpent, or it appears like a root. So if you are looking very vaguely and we'll say there is a serpent, or there is a rope, or there is a root. Imagine you to go further, and when you are going there, you don't see a rope, you don't see a serpent, you don't see a root, but you see some movements. And still if you go there, there's no rope, ant after ant it is going. But at a distance it appears like a line. The Mahasi Sayadaw is telling, I don't know the English term, guinea penel. How do you call the firewood, one in fire stick. In the utter darkness, if you take a fire stick and rotate, you see a circle. But you know it is a fire stick. When you rotate in a certain RPM, your mind is looking it as a circle. But you know it's the magic of the mind. Likewise, you can give 1001 examples. Even if you see the continuity, it's broken pieces. And that's an utter threat for the egotistic people. Utter threat for a luxurious and, princely people. For the princess and prince, they never happy with that. They consider it is, you are destructive. You see negativity of the life. So why you are looking into that? Just accept it as a line. But scientifically you can prove from the distance it is ant line. Yes. It appears like a rope, it appears like a serpent. But you go there and see there are no continuity. One after the other. And if you get a dot matrix printout, each and every letter means 9 dots. And make like a letter. 9 dots are the making 1 0 or 9 or 1 or letter A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Right? They are not continuous. But our mind read it. So, but if you look at from this point of view, you can see there is no connectivity between the in-breath and out-breath. There is a grey area, but they appear like a continuity. So for that, not noting but knowing. That means we call knowing without noting. Has to happen that after that much, you must have mindfulness. The early part continue, but that mindfulness is always not depending on the noting and knowing. Whenever mindfulness come up to the maturity, you must let the mindfulness to branch out and flower, knowing without noting. Whenever it is happening, don't challenge it. Don't disturb that development. That is what we call the maturity. That's what we call the advantage of the theoretical understanding. Advantage of the deductive knowledge or rationalization. Let it happen 1001 times, rather than understand the continuity of the in-breath and out-breath. You see continuity of the mindfulness, but the in-breath and out-breath are linked each other with a very weak links. They are broken pieces. So that is called going to pieces without falling apart. It's a thread. It's a thread. So Mark Epstein wrote a book explaining the mindfulness, everything with cracks, everything with the gone to pieces. But they never fall apart. Still you can see the crevices, cracks. So it appears like a negative, it appears like a destructive, it appears like a not constructive, it appears like not creative, it not appears like a aesthetic. So when that happens, people start to move. People get jerks and get some shocks like this. And they got, all of a sudden they get up and say, I don't know, I'm sitting meditating and I have been thrown away from the sitting posture. And all of a sudden things are happening. So they come out, it's 1001. Not, it is a must. I am not asking you to get jerks by meditating. You may imitate jerking tomorrow telling that you have come out to the knowing without noting. That is not. But things happen because our value system, our thinking system is gone to pieces. But never falling apart. So this is a crack, this is a situation to understand whether you are mentally balanced or not. Beyond that, no meditation for sick people and the mentally imbalanced people. Because it is becoming, creating so much of a threat. Without noting, knowing happens. Now it's gushing like everywhere you see things are going into pieces. Not only the calm, concentrated meditation in sitting, even in walking, even in the day-to-day activities. So you can't believe your eyes. Earlier you can see aesthetic value, you can see lovable things, desirable things, but now mind never stops at that. It penetrates through like a laser beam and split, and then again laser beam, split, go deep and deep into that. So when it is happening, not only your body, which you already selected as your primary object, that deductive thinking, even in the day-to-day activities you can see. One lady, I can remember, wrote to Venerable Jnanarama. I used to read the letters, and she says after washing her rice in the vessel and remove the rice, and she throw away the water and splashing. When the water is throwing, splashing happens. She says, why should I go and sit and meditate? I can see. When I'm throwing the water, splash. And when the water drop or raindrops fallen upon the hard rock, splash. And if you take a handful of sand and pour into a cement floor, splash. So moment you see that the micro level in the meditation, sitting for example, later you can see there is no continuity as such, they are episodes. Just like a cartoon film, If you run the cartoon film in the slow motion, there is no drama. There is no story. You can see frame after frame. But if it is running in exactly the RPM 1500 per minute, then the story starts, animation happens. Animation never happens if it is splash slideshows. Animation never happens in a film if the projector is working in a slow motion. Then you are disturbed. You can't see the picture. You can't make use the picture. No story. So this is what happened in the meditation, when and where it is going to pieces without falling apart, unless otherwise you are prepared. Unless otherwise you have the strength in your mind to understand this is how the changing nature. Our mind is always happy to see the sum total of everything, and we call an unit. There are no units on the earth. Everything you can split it. So that is what happened to the physics. At the beginning they told molecule is as a unit. And then went to the atom as the unit. When we are going to classroom, they used to draw periodical cycle and this hydrogen, helium, and they say, ultimately they say, over the 236 or light, the atoms are going into the subatomic particles, radiations. So therefore you can't put into one cage. Marie Curie found out splitting. And now it says subatomic particle wise, it is not helium, not hydrogen. Subatomic particle is a universal thing. And subatomic particle is an imaginary, it is a quantum, but it's just energy. There is no matter. E is equal to mc square. Energy is m, mass. So where the locality and non-locality? When become mass, local. Energy, non-local. When become mass, time. When you say energy, no time. So imagine, knowing without noting, now you are preparing your mind from mass to energy. It's a heavy threatening thing. So my teacher, Venerable Dhammika, I was about to ordain. I just wrote telling Bhante, after so much of journey, I found a place I am going to become a monk. Then he says, calling me by my lay name, I am not teaching Vipassana because it is send people mad. I am just teaching only mindfulness and metta bhavana. Because people are not ready. Because then at this point onward, your egotistic idea are going to pieces. And if you're going to become enlightened, I myself going to enlightenment is you can't put these two terms inside the same sentence. I and enlightenment is two different things. You want to have your complete I undisturbed without going to pieces. I wish to become enlightened. I wish to become first jhana. I wish to get the vipassana jhana. You are splitting hairs. You are cracking your head. You don't know. You are not prepared. You are so stereotyped. I mean, that is the cross-section of the human mind. But the Buddha, at the beginning, of course, Buddha also suspected, what the hell, how can I teach the people? Because they are so egotistic, so conceited, so with desire. But when you are going into this knowing without noting, it's such an exposure, going to pieces without the falling apart, must have so much of preparedness. So you must discuss each other. We have to understand, both our mind can understand, left brain is continuity. Right brain, spontaneous. Right brain always ready to understand things as they are, here and now. But the left brain is always overpowering. Making theories, making lineage. Right brain is comprehensive, it's a matrix in thinking. Left brain is always linear. So education is corrupting ourselves, specializing the left brain, keeping right brain brand new, never used. So there's no heart, there's no feeling for other people. You always think about your one-upmanship. And the academic centers, you can see how much jealous they are. They are teaching jealousy. Academic centers, specifically higher education. Cutthroatism. Because some or the other you have to acquire your thing. Ultimately what you are losing is humanity, the heart, the right brain, or the comprehensive understanding, or clear comprehension. So this is a kind of a break-even point or threat or threshold for you to understand from reasoning, from rationalization to just accept as they are. Rationalization is always you are up to adjust, always up to shape and beautify. But the things as they are, you try to adopt into the situation according to your versatility. That is called neuroplasticity. Your nervous system is plastic. It can be adjusted. Earlier they told, after 6 years, it's a hardwired circuit, you can't change. But now, only the tool mindfulness. After introducing mindfulness, they are proving plasticity. Train your mind and change your brain. But if your mind is on the outset, is not ready to change from in-breath to out-breath, in-breath is not out-breath, out-breath is not in-breath like, specific characteristic, individual characteristic, intrinsic characteristic. By longer time observation, you can see in-breath and out-breath both are air element. And when it is happening, if you are not ready to accept it, if you are not prepared it, then you are splitting your hair and you get headache, you get giddiness, you get lot of diseases. This is unpreparedness. So interviews are the only way you have to say, okay, when such a thing happen, only you have to be prepared. This is the evolution going to take place. Are you ready? So, maybe the way I am going to interpret, going to give a wrong impression, but for the sake of explanation, I would say, imagine a person meditating in household life, a mother. And the meditation come up to the position, everyone is the same. And ultimately, baby is crying on the cot. And then what is the mother is going to do? Am I to get up, go and then take care about the baby, or nodding, listening. So there was one young boy, when I was in Burma, and they got a temporary ordination, a very bright boy. And he's been taught, not pain. Oh, sound. Thinking. He's very bright. And after the disrobing, he went to the class, and the maths teacher told, he is completely blank. Earlier he was the best bright person in the class. And then the mother brought the child to the meditation master. I was there. And she offered something and told, Bande, I don't know how to put this question into you. Earlier he used to be a very bright person in the maths class. Now today I got a complaint. After even 35 minutes, he never heard anything when the teacher is teaching. And the boy was playful and he's playing. And the master asked, do you understand this, what your mother going to say? He said, yes. But it is not a serious problem for him. So how do you explain it? Me? I noted listening. So throughout 20-35 minutes I am mindful. What is the problem? Master was so happy, mother was about to commit suicide. So when you are dealing with young children, now I have touched the subject now. I am working with the children, and there you have to be very careful, because keep the mothers away. Keep the teachers away. They can't comprehend because you can train your brain and change your mind. But the mother wanted to have the mathematician. Square mind. Or with a stereotype mind, it's a mathematician. So you see all the mathematicians are mad people. They are not human. Luckily I am not a good mathematician. My family, everyone is bright, double, this we call double promotion. Maths. It's a bright gene. I am not. So Sigmund Freud mentioned, any skillful person in one field is a psychiatrically imbalanced person. Then after the death of the Sigmund Freud, they asked, what is why the brain of the psychiatrist then? Is he also mad? Yes. So there was a cartoon, after his death, Sigmund Freud is the patient. Sigmund Freud is the doctor. And his professor's photo also Sigmund Freud. He's a sick person, psychiatric sick person. So therefore genius in one sense, you are no more human. So here you understand common character and the individual character is a wide subject. But Pandita Sayadaw, when he is writing the book Paving the Path, I don't have copies, but I can give you the electronic copy. But I know you never come here for learning this individual characteristic in the common character. But understand with our rational mind, with our scientific mind, how easily you can figure it out. Or you can give figurative way how much difficult for us to change our mind from individual characteristic to the common characters. The Buddha mentioned, Mātāyatāniyam puttang ayusāyeka puttamanuraki evampi sabba bhutesu manasambhave aparimana. The Buddha says, just like a mother, love her only child. Likewise, love all the beings. Love all the beings, not the loving Sinhalese Buddhists. Not only loving your family members. There are a lot of theories to indicate how to develop loving kindness to your own family members and your own people. But the Buddha says, have a universal characteristic, living beings. That is what the metta. Manasam bhavya paripana. Manasam means the human. Endless. So, whenever you try to learn this, the going to pieces without falling apart, and individual characteristics to the common characters, your personality, your likings and disliking, your traits or your habits completely reconsidered, reshuffled. So let it happen slowly. If you're going to accelerate, either you will end up as a schizophrenic or bipolar. Then it says, only meditation, only medication, no meditation. Below that level, medication both can happen. That beyond bipolar, so meditation can lead you to that. I am not going to give an assurance, no. It is going there because you are meditating unprepared. Mind is not mature enough. So therefore you must have listening, theoretical understanding, book knowledge, and rationalization, and meditation also has to happen. So ultimately theory knowledge and the practical knowledge has to go hand in hand. So for that you have to trust and believe other meditators. We have to share each other. We have to understand, and everyone is undergoing a bottleneck or a kind of a difficulty, just like passing the baton in the relay race, one person to the other. If you drop the baton, the lead you have, the person earned will be lost. So without dropping the baton, how to pass it? So we'll take time tomorrow. So I have come up to a certain level, so I wish to take further into this avitakka vichāramatta samadhi, how much we are prepared and how much we have ignored it, how much we have not fertilized it or facilitated it, but by knowing and making the mind open and preparing for this impermanent notion, you may be a different person to the same experience. Hope it will not crack yourself and need psychiatric consultancy. So that is why overnight have a nice sleep and be prepared for the tomorrow's talk. Thank you very much for the listening and for the participation.